Freshlist.io.
Hello everyone and welcome to today's episode of You Deserve Fresh Lettuce. I am your co-host Rachel.
And I'm Delia.
Don't forget to follow us on social media at YDFL Podcast. If you're listening in your car on your favorite podcast platform, don't forget you can find us on
Alexa
or YouTube. All right, in this episode we're going to be talking about guys who break bro code. Let's break down what we're talking about here. What this is let's just say you are in a relationship, marriage, whatever, long-term dating situationship, whatever, and his circle of guys, there's always that one.
Or a few, depending on how many guys he rolls with.
That will start to kind of make little moves, like little subtle sort of advances. And I don't want to say it so aggressively, like truly they're not like grabbing you.
Right.
But there's little things like, I'll give you an example. You know, if I had a wife like you, I would blah, blah, blah.
I would take care of you.
Yeah.
Or when you're about to get divorced, did you know, like, if you need anybody to talk to, if you want to go to lunch, if you want to go to whatever.
Yes.
I'm always, don't take it the wrong way, but you know what? He's an idiot. He doesn't know what he lost. And it's usually, in my opinion, like the people that he rolls with since childhood, by the way. This isn't like the neighbor or like just some random guy. It's usually like the guys that he grew up with, which is so weird.
Yeah, so I actually had someone tell me that's actually in my family, some guys in my family a long time ago, and they were kind of having a conversation about that a woman should know.
Right.
If her man is basically doing her dirty behind her back because the friends or some guy will come forward and start kind of making passes at you as a woman. And I was like, what do you mean? And they're like, yeah, because we see, okay, this dude's already freaking over here and over there. And then they see the wife, and sometimes we feel like a man will feel sorry for her.
Right.
And it's that rescue mentality.
Yes.
And they'll start to kind of make moves on you.
Right. Or sometimes what I've noticed is that they'll say, I told him not to do what he was doing because he was going to lose such an amazing woman like you.
Oh, yeah.
And, there was an incident that happened where we were out and, he was trying to hook up with one of the girls. Of course, I didn't want to tell you at the time. So sometimes some of the women, by the way, that I've known personally are very vengeful. So they're like, oh, really? Tell me more. And then guess what happens?
They hook up with the dude.
They hook up. Because they're like, okay, well, if he did that to me, I'm going to get him where it hurts. And that is to hook up with the friend.
An eye for an eye makes the whole world blind.
Yes, amen. And that's where the guys break bro code. Or they'll tell you, hey, so-and-so has been asking about you. Would you give him a chance? And it happens to be within the same circle, too.
Yes.
That happens, too. You're like, yeah, no, you can't do that.
If you are one of the Fab 15 men who listen and watch our show, we assure you there is someone in your circle somehow, some way, because it does seem to be the closest one.
It is the closest one.
If they are witnessing your dirty deeds that you are doing behind your woman's back, there is a possibility, a high likelihood that he's going to be Captain Save-A-Ho when you get evicted from the castle.
Yep,
he's gonna be
the one. Or there is like some people that I know, and the wife has a tendency to like get out of hand and gets like super drunk and like just is belligerent and acting just wacky, and he's always like, I just don't know what to do with her, and what would you do, and I need someone to help me and guide me, and so all of a sudden they want you to break that code too, and it's like, dude, you got to go to church and pray, and you got to salvage that marriage.
You're like, you don't need me, you need Jesus.
You need Jesus in your life. Like, you don't come at me and looking at me like I'm going to help you with your situation. Like, if your wife's drunk, then that's on you. And I don't know. I don't necessarily know that that's breaking bro code per se.
I mean, I think it's like
bro code. There is something that's being broken there for sure.
He's breaking bro code, going to you as like the solution maker. Like,
what do you think I should do about her? It's like, what you should do about her is go take her to AA, first of all. Yeah. And then, go from there. But
I actually love that you brought that up because, honestly, that right there is probably such a common thing.
Right.
In that they will literally point out something about their wives to come to you as like, I wish that she fixed herself up more. Can you maybe help talk to her?
Right.
And then it's like, why? And so at the time, ladies, I know for me personally, I didn't see that coming. Like, I didn't recognize that as like a tactic.
Right.
Until I was out of my marriage. But in my marriage, I was like, oh, okay, this is my really good friend's husband. We're all cool.
Right.
He genuinely cares about her.
Absolutely.
Like one of them even said, I'll give you, money and maybe you guys can go shopping together. And see, I didn't really catch on. I knew that I was a little bit kind of like, this is weird.
Right.
But I'm not super arrogant where I'm like, oh, clearly he wants me. Like, I don't, my mind doesn't work like that.
And you wouldn't think that.
I just didn't think it.
I wouldn't think that either.
But now that I have this lovely podcast with my lovely friend Delia.
Yes.
So many things come to light and people DM us and tell us things. But they will also, right? So they'll do the whole, she drinks a lot, can you help me solve the problem with her?
Or she doesn't cook, can you teach her?
Yes.
Or she's not as domestic as you.
Yes.
I wish she was more domestic.
Yes.
Or you know what, she's let herself go. Maybe you should tell her to go to the gym with you. And you're just like, whoa.
And then if you're like,
you're like, oh my gosh, you should go to the gym. And all of a sudden, he's like, yeah, because I love, because you're opening that door. And if you're just like, all right, I'll talk to her. And then it's like they're trying to go fishing.
But you know what that is?
Shut it.
They're forming an alliance with you.
Right.
That is without the knowledge of the wife. And it's in the nature of it really puts you in a tough spot, because why would you then go to the wife and be like, yeah, your husband wants you to work out and he said we should work out together. You don't want to do that either, because then you're like, oh, I'm going to cause
like you're
problems.
Basically like calling her out, and it's not fair and it's not cool. And then there's also in my experiences, the couple that always gets like super drunk and then they start to fight, and then it's like she's always so problematic, and then he wants to, like you said, build an alliance with you, and then just start talking bad about the wife, and I think that that's a slippery slope, and that's why it's a little difficult when you're around people that are like coupled up and you're like the single one, because you're like, oh, I don't want to get in the mix. I don't want to get in the mix.
My former mother-in-law, I hate to say former mother-in-law because she's still in my life. She's a wonderful woman,
but she is essentially she's divorced.
She's my former mother-in-law. She said something to me years ago, because again, I've told this many times. When I was married, I had all these brother-in-laws. Right. It's a very male centric family,
right?
Lots of males in the family, and we all got along so well, whether it's playing cards or having drinks or dancing or karaoke, whatever. Like, we always had so much fun,
right?
And because we kind of grew up as kids, and then one day she was at my house and we were just like kind of raging and having a good time. And the next morning, we're doing dishes together, and she looks at me. She goes, I just, I don't want to tell you nothing. I know that you mean well. And I was like, oh.
Uh-oh.
And she said, but and this is in Spanish, by the way, but she says, I want you to remember, first they're men, and then they're everything else. And I said, what do you mean? And she said, first they're a man.
Right.
Then they're your brother-in-law, your cousin, your neighbor, but first and foremost, they are a man.
Always gonna act like
and I was like, what did she see? She was like, so it just was, I didn't really understand it fully at the time. I thought,
she's just
but
being old
she
school.
wasn't
Did you think
wrong.
That she was being old school, or do you just?
I thought at the time, like, oh, she just probably doesn't want me hanging out with the guys, like, when they're drinking. So, which is an old school cultural thing too. Yeah. But let me tell you,
and that's something that you're taught as a young girl.
Yeah.
Also, it's a cultural thing. Like, you go inside, the guys are hanging out. You're just not to.
But when I tell you that small statement, first they are men, then they're everything else, that applies to your friend's husband.
Yes.
That applies to your husband's best friend.
Yes.
That applies. And so when I got divorced, and all of a sudden the phone rang, and it's like, hey, I just got the news of what happened, and you guys are getting divorced. I'm like, yeah. If you need anyone to talk to, you can call me. Yes. Or I noticed that, because you work over here, like, I actually have a route over there I can stop by. And it was like,
they were so available, right?
So many of people in his camp were available to, like, help me heal.
Yes, of course.
Yeah.
You know what I've noticed also, going back to something similar to that, is, like, I was dating a guy for a while, and then his really good friend would once in a while, like, I wouldn't say necessarily make passes, but kind of be very, very kind and nice. And then all of a sudden they break up. His girlfriend and him break up. And right away, the person that I was dating was like, just so you know, like, he was cheating on his girlfriend with all kinds of hookers, and he took this many hookers back to the hotel, and he did this and he did that.
Oh,
and so
jealous.
he's right away, like, in my opinion, without even coming out or saying anything, like,
he was slandering him,
like, just slandering the guy. And not that I was even looking at the guy in that regard, by the way, but I was just thinking, wow, like, guys do the same thing sometimes that girls do. Because women do that sometimes.
Women are like,
too.
oh, you think she's cute? She has herpes. Next.
For the record, she's lesbian.
Yeah. Let's not talk about her chlamydia and all of her infections.
Yeah, exactly. Like, girls are really quick to do that.
Women.
So that was like it kind of caught me off guard when he did that. I was like, oh, wow. I was like, well, I mean, I'm going to keep that to myself. Yeah. Not giving any names out, but yeah, it was pretty interesting.
The bro code thing, we have an Instagram account at YDFL Podcast, and we decided during the hiatus to do some lives with some gurus that we saw on social media, TikTok, Instagram, and we had some really wonderful conversations. You can actually go there, and they're still there, the full Q&As. And we learned actually a lot. They were willing to break bro code to just kind of give us the insights. And some of the things that we learned, like, here's kind of a neat thing that I think is worth talking about, and we can talk about it more later, but one of the bro code things that, I forget exact, Delia's better at remembering the names. One of the gentlemen said something so brilliant. I think it was Pastor Andy. And he said that a woman who isn't, like, fixed up or whatever, when you're not fixed up in your relationship.
Yes. And he was actually banned from TikTok for saying
this right here got him banned.
Yeah.
He said that a woman who, like, let's just say your man comes home and you're just hair in a bun, no makeup, just, like, sweats, oversized t-shirt, whatever you clean the house in is what you were in or whatever. And you do that enough times, and he said that was equivalent, even gaining weight, by the way.
Yeah.
He said that was equivalent
to getting cursed out.
For a woman to get cursed out by her man, talking about, you're so worthless, you're so this, you're so that, and, like, putting you down the worst way.
Yeah.
Or no, sorry. You being a sloppy mess was equivalent to a woman telling him off. It was equivalent to basically cutting him down and talking about what an idiot he is and this and that and disgusting. Yes. And so they took it.
And I think, like, our eyes, like, just came out of our face. We're like, what?
But the DMs from the men were like, he's not lying.
Absolutely right.
He's right.
But you know what? It got him banned from TikTok. But he was basically sharing, what he felt, and a lot of the guys were agreeing with that. It's one of those things that they're unsaid topics.
Yes.
That you're just like, well, she had 2 kids. She had 3 kids. She has to run a household. Well, she has to do this. Well, she works. Well, she that. Well, she. You know what? You have to find that time. And he was basically just kind of breaking bro code.
He was breaking bro code, and he gave us that kind of bombshell. And I was like, big nugget. Whoa. And I know that he was even tiptoeing around the conversation because, again, it got him banned before. People reporting him. But, in getting into the psyche of the male, we're just here to say, hey, we've had some conversations with some guys on our IG Live or in our lives, and we've noticed things personally when we got divorced, men coming out of the woodwork. It seems like they're coming out from under the rocks. And, like, I remember going to Delia saying, because I got divorced before her, going to her saying, and you know what? 2 things happened. The number of guys I would have never thought that came out of the woodwork to make a play was shocking.
Right.
The number of men who in my marriage blatantly were acting like they were campaigning for my husband's spot were not campaigning for his spot. When the divorce happened, they were kind of a little bit crickets. Yeah. It was like they kind of were like interested, but they weren't actually applying.
Something happened and they let you go for a reason.
They weren't actually applying for the job. They just wanted to see if you would cheat on your husband with them. So there was a lot of eye-openers, and the guys will, just ladies, look for those signs, because he's going to seem so nice.
Yes.
He's going to seem so caring.
If you don't have anyone, fixing you with the plumbing, just know I got you.
Oh, that's another thing, too.
Yes, they want to be the handyman, right?
Especially if you're the single woman. Like, I know I moved, and I moved into a cul-de-sac in a little suburban neighborhood, and it's Dadville, right? And all the moms and the kids. And when I tell you everyone knew that I was like the single girl, it was like, oh, hey, at the sprinkler, like you said. Or, oh, I saw someone. I thought I saw someone.
I noticed your fence is breaking.
Yes.
I'm going in with the drill.
Yes.
Literally.
Oh
not really, because I wouldn't let that. But, it happened a lot more than not. And I'm like, oh my gosh.
And that's not exactly bro code. That's just guys being guys. But men, the 15, if you're listening, don't go do for another woman what you wouldn't do for your own wife, please.
Yeah.
And even if you would do it for your wife, that's not meant to be shared with every other woman.
And you know what? Let the single guys handle her. You don't need to do that unless you just don't care about your wife. Then do your thing. But
if you're friends with some guy, yeah, I don't really know what advice to give you because we kind of do want to know. Like, we kind of do like when you make bro code to an extent because you might be spilling the beans about him. But yeah, that's
you know what I think though. In my opinion, I feel like if it's already done and it's like you're done, you're not going back. Why do you need to then talk about stories you never shared anyway? Like, why even go there? It's unnecessary information in my opinion to say like, by the way, when we were in Vegas, he hooked up with I don't know, a dwarf prostitute and like, you know, at his bachelor party. Like, that's unnecessary information.
Literally,
it's unnecessary.
The guys will come forward and just start incriminating the hell out of themselves too because clearly they were there at that thing.
Yeah.
But I think they do it so that you don't see them as a bad guy.
I would never do that, and I was telling him not to do it. And then he hooked up with like 3 dwarfs. You know, he had threesome with 3 dwarfs in Vegas. And you're like, what?
I mean, can you really be mad if he hooked up with 3 dwarfs in Vegas? Come on now. Come on. Are we really mad?
You know, like, man, I give the guy in for effort, but still, like, that's unnecessary information. You didn't need to tell me that. Like, come on. But the guy wants to go ahead and like throw him under the bus and then say,
you know why?
I would have never hooked up with the dwarfs.
It's the whole, look at, if you throw dirt, you lose ground, fellas.
Yeah, amen.
And women too. If you're throwing dirt at somebody, the person listening is just seeing you losing ground.
Yes.
But I think that the human nature is to go, oh, I'm going to put down what he did, because clearly she doesn't like it because she left him, so that I can look better. And I'm like a hero, and I'm in her corner. And it's like, whoa, we don't need all that.
And I think if you're a wise woman, you'll see it and say, again, unnecessary information. I didn't need to hear that, and I don't care. And you just kind of go on, but then it kind of lets you know like he was never a friend to your ex-husband too, because that to me is indicative of like, okay, so this guy is like literally breaking bread with us, and it's one of those things though. I don't have a relationship with my ex-husband anymore. You break up, you're divorced. But it's like, how do you then break bread with, you know, your husband or whatever as a family, and then all of a sudden break bro code like that? It's like, it's almost offensive to me too, though, like, because I don't want to hear it. And
I think a snake is a snake is a snake, and I think I think that if somebody removes their mask and then you just kind of see, you gotta, what do they say when people show you who they are? You gotta believe them the first time. You know, so ladies, you're gonna have a lot of these guys that break bro code to be in your corner, especially fresh off the divorce.
The divorce boat,
1,000%.
But I do think, in my opinion, that you should never, like you said, be eye for an eye, because everyone's going to end up blind. I think if anything, you should try to veer away from any circles or anyone that has anything to do with him, whether they're trying to be of service to you, literally, like legitimately, or of service like the other way too. Yeah. So you just got to block that and say, you know what, I'm not going to do that, because it's a self-respect. You're disrespecting yourself in a way, you know?
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's basically all I got as far as, you know, breaking bro code. You know, you have to kind of just feel them out. Not literally, but you know what I mean.
Don't feel them out.
Feel it out.
Hey, ladies, don't forget, you deserve fresh lettuce. We will catch you next week.
Cheers.